this is Collaboration Central. Welcome to episode 15. Today we're going to talk about ecosystems, but more specifically, ecosystems within a collaborative environment. So stay tuned for more. Those of us who have spent years in branding and marketing, in stakeholder reputation and stakeholder management know all too well the discipline of stakeholder mapping. And while stakeholder mapping is still highly relevant today, it's got to be relevant in a context of collaboration. So in the past we would plot stakeholders against different matrices and different axes, for example, power and influence. Some high power, low influence stakeholders would be communicated differently to those with the opposite attributes. Today this is of course still important, but more important is how we start collaborating with those stakeholders and how we derive great benefit from that. So how does one start designing an ecosystem? There are many different models and there are many acronyms attributed to those models. I'm going to borrow from the authors of Firms of Endearment, and I'm going to utilize the SPICE model. So this is what it looks like. At the center is you or your organization, and around it is SPICE. Society, partners, investors, customers, and finally, last but definitely not least, employees. So that's what the SPICE model looks like. And for some organizations, these particular headings and definitions may not work. I found they pretty much work across the board. What's really interesting is that the way the authors think about partners is partners are essentially suppliers. That is your supply chain. And there are many organizations today that still don't see their supply chain as partners, and I think to their detriment. I'd like to share a case study, or bits of a case study rather, on where collaboration between the company and its partners have been highly beneficial over the short and the long term. The use case I'd like to talk about is Amazon. Amazon is known to have exceptional vendor relationships and more specifically collaborative vendor relationships. And if one looks at the relationship between Amazon and DHL, one understands how this has worked and how over the long term it's benefited the company. These two entities continue to innovate together. It doesn't matter how you choose to define your ecosystem, whether you use SPICE or another model, or even whether you start naming your stakeholders by their actual titles. That works too. Create the ecosystem, start thinking about where there's room for collaboration, but where it's mutually beneficial. Good luck with creating your ecosystems, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you for joining.